Hey there folks, my name is Caleb Downing and today we're going to go over the installation of the new RG2 handguards from Breek Arms. Let's get into it. Okay, so straight out of the box, here we go. We have the RG2 handguards. This is the 13 7-inch handguard, right? Comes nice wrapped in plastic, keep it protected from anything. You're probably going to have a little bit of oil residue and stuff on here. Perfectly fine, don't worry about it. But this is exactly how it comes. It comes pre-installed with your steel barrel nut in the back. You have two aluminum wedges down here that are secured. One steel bolt going in this way, one steel bolt going in this way. And this is kind of a key feature of this. This is a very, very tight, secure lockup. When you tighten these two bolts down and those wedges compact, kind of like door stops, they push together like this, and that pushes up on the steel barrel nut, and it also kind of helps pull down the handguard onto the barrel nut, and it creates an overall very, very tight, very, very secure lockup to your barrel nut, keeping everything nice and tight where it needs to be. All right, all of these, we got a bunch of different lengths and sizes, and again, quick note on that, you can look up the different lengths and sizes at breekarms.com. That's where all the really detailed information is going to be for you. But overall, these guys are made out of 6061 aluminum. It's type 3 hard coat anodized, so it's a very, very tough finish, very, very abrasion resistant and all that. Very, very tough, and it should last you a very, very long time. All right, but those are some of the key features of these handguards. Also, a very key feature, in my opinion, I put a bunch of uppers together. I've done a bunch of different stuff like that, and these are very easy to put together, all right? So very quickly, we got that out of the way. Let's talk about the tools that you're going to need to assemble this guy, and very quickly, again, we're gonna hit the components that we're putting together for this particular upper. All right, so I didn't count them, but there's a handful of tools here that you're gonna need. Primarily, you're going to need a Torx driver, Torx wrench, basically a Torx wrench, set to anywhere between 40 and 60 foot-pounds, all right? I like to set mine at 40, but you have a lot of play there, 40 to 60 to stay within spec, all right? On the end here, I have a 1 1/4 inch open-ended drive, right? And this is going to be used to tighten your barrel nut, right? We don't have an armorer's wrench, and that is a thank you, that we don't have an armorer's wrench. Those things can be a pain to deal with. This takes place of our armorer's wrench. We'll see what we're talking about here in a minute, but you're gonna need those. You're going to need a Torx driver, not a Torx wrench, a Torx driver set to 60 inch-pounds, right? This is going to be to get proper torque on those cross bolts, right? Those are gonna be set to 60 inch-pounds. For whatever kind of gas system you're gonna be using, in this case, we're gonna talk about it in a minute, but this is a Breek Arms gas block and gas tube. You need some kind of a drive or something to lock down whatever kind of little screws that come with that. So in this case, I have this one here. You're also going to need, depending on what all you're putting together, we're putting in a little small Picatinny QD MLOK slot, and we're gonna need a T25 bit for that. For whatever muzzle device, if you have a specific muzzle device, you might need a specific tool for that, but in this case, it's going to be a Breek Arms 3-prong flash hider, and we just need a crescent wrench, right? Adjustable crescent wrench, perfectly good to go there. 2, 3, 4 more things. These get overlooked all the time. This is Loctite for your screws. People don't put it on, or people put way too much on. Little dab will do you. Use some Loctite. A bottle like this will last you like 10 years. All right, and anti-seize, the complete opposite of Loctite. This is gonna be used for your barrel nut. I literally the other day had to help a buddy take apart his upper, and we seriously had to cut off the barrel nut because it could not come off. We tried everything under the sun. Whoever put that thing on did not use anti-seize, and that barrel nut seized to the upper. You don't wanna do that. That's a pain in the butt. Buy a little jar of this stuff. It will go a very long way, and it will save you a lot of headache. You can use, this is one of the benefits and the ease of use, you can use an electric drill, hand drill, to help take some stuff apart and put some stuff together. We'll talk about that. You're also gonna need some kind of a vise and some kind of an action block, whether it be an action block that blocks around your upper receiver, or in this case we have a Geisley reaction rod, and it just works a little bit better for me, but you're gonna need something to hold your upper together as you assemble it. All right, moving on, we kind of already talked about half the pieces. We have a mil-spec upper receiver. These handguards work with mil-spec and billet uppers. take your pick, whatever you have, whatever you decide to use, it's probably gonna work just fine. I haven't run across one that it doesn't work yet, but in this case, we're using a mil-spec upper receiver. We already mentioned it, but we'll say it again. We have a Breek Arms gas block and gas tube. These can come assembled if you get them that way, and they can come unassembled, depending on, you know, if you want to buy the assembled or unassembled. And to assemble them, we're not doing a video on that, but you have one little pin right here that holds your gas tube onto your gas block. We already took out the 2 little screws down here because we're going to Loctite those, but make sure you have those screws and don't lose them. At the end of the barrel, we are going to have a 3-prong flash hider from Breek Arms, as well as the blast shield from Breek Arms. Talking about the barrel itself, we have a 12.5-inch ballistic advantage barrel, and we have a bolt carrier group and the Breek Arms charging handle. All right, I believe that covers all of our bases. Let's go ahead and put everything all together. All right, so here we go. To put everything together, we got our barrel, we have our upper receiver. If you notice, a little bit of fuzz in there. The barrel itself is gonna have this little silver, doesn't have to be silver, but it's gonna have some kind of little nub sticking up. That little nub is gonna correspond with the very top right here of your receiver. There's a little notch. Make sure that that clicks in. If it doesn't go in, you're gonna have problems and it's not gonna be safe. That's a safety thing. Make sure that it's mated together and secured properly. Can't stress that one enough, all right? We're going to apply just a little bit. You just need a little bit of anti-seize, right? Just a little bit. And I already applied some earlier to this upper receiver, so I need a little bit less. But seriously, less than you would need for brushing your teeth. Don't brush your teeth with this stuff, but you know what I mean. Just a little dab will do you, and that's gonna work itself onto the threads when we thread on our barrel nut. That's gonna make things a lot easier, all right? Whatever I just said, it's gonna make things a lot easier to take off if we have to take it off. Make sure I say that correctly. All right, we're gonna go ahead and just slide this guy on. I know he's totally assembled, but this is just a good way to get the barrel nut off instead of trying to pull it out. We're gonna go ahead and slide this feller on, and we're just gonna kind of hand tighten it down. And this is going to work that anti-seize around the threads, make sure it gets on the upper receiver and it gets onto the barrel nut itself. So now we're going to take our T27 bit, lock that into our driver, and we're going to take out those bolts. Take out that one. Take out that guy. Just makes things a little bit faster, a little bit easier to use. At this point, we're just going to take our handguard and slide it off, try not to scratch everything up on the inside. Here we go. All right, so now that our barrel nut is on there hand tight, we have our anti-seize on there. We're gonna go ahead and use our driver set to 40 foot-pounds. We're going to hear it click when it reaches 40 foot-pounds. All right, we're gonna do it one more time. All right, and that's just gonna make sure for sure everything is tightened down the way that it needs to be. All right, now, next thing we're gonna do is throw on our gas system, right? So there's our gas block and gas tube. We're going to make sure that the gas tube goes straight up into the upper receiver through the little hole in the upper receiver, right? The beauty of this guy's the reaction rods. You can just flip everything over now. We're gonna make sure everything is straight up and down the way that it needs to be. Some barrels are dimpled, some barrels are not, some barrels have marks. If you need to visually look down and make sure everything's lined up, now's the time to make sure everything is properly lined up. So we're going to take a little bit of Loctite, just a little bit, don't need a whole lot, and now we're going to just nicely snug those down. We're not torquing them to a specific spec, we're just snugging them nice and snug, and that Loctite is going to help lock everything in there. All right. All right, so those guys are both on nice and snug. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and put on our muzzle device. We're putting on our muzzle device now because the handguard that we are putting on is going to provide kind of a recessed look to the barrel. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put on our crush washer. We're going to put on a little bit of Loctite again to the threads on here. We now screw on our muzzle device, and we're just gonna snug it down nice and snug. We're not gonna go crazy on it. The crush washer in conjunction with that Loctite should keep everything on there nice and snug. We just need to give it a little bit of tightening, and that's all I'm gonna do for now. Now I can take my blast shield and just screw that guy on, and he should be good to go. All right, so now we're gonna put on the actual handguard. We're gonna try not to do a bunch of metal on metal noises, but we're gonna slide this guy over. And here's a quick note. Sometimes these barrel nuts can be just slightly snug, or slightly a little bit more snug than others. And so if you find yourself not being able to push this all the way forward, don't freak out. There's nothing wrong with your system. Take a hairdryer and just slightly warm up the metal over here on the handguard, and what that will do is open up the metal just a little bit. All it takes is just a little bit, and that will allow you to get your handguard all the way on. You probably won't have that. It's not a problem. That just means you have tight tolerances, which is actually a good thing. All right, so we're gonna align everything, make sure everything is good to go. Flip our whole upper receiver over, and now we're going to install these wedges and bolts. Now we're gonna put a little bit of Loctite. I keep saying Loctite because I've done this long enough to know that you use a little bit of Loctite, it's gonna save you a lot of trouble later. But put a little bit of Loctite on these aluminum wedges. All right, and then your wedges, they're only gonna go in one way really. So it's gonna be hard to mess that up. You have a wedged portion, right? So it's flat on the top and it kind of goes wedged this way. That small end goes into the handguard, right? The big end stays out. Take your bolts, they're gonna cross each other. One goes one way, one goes the other way, if that makes sense. Kind of screw those in with your hands. Now we get to use our drill, and we don't want to have it all the way up on like a drill setting, right? We want to have it on kind of a medium torque setting so we don't over tighten anything. But we're just gonna kind of drive these in, tighten them up a little bit, just get them snug. All right, now we're gonna steal the Torx bit out of that guy and put it into our Torx driver set to 60 inch-pounds. And this is where we will make sure we tighten everything down to 60 inch-pounds, right? This just ensures everything's gonna be torqued down properly and we're not gonna have any accidents or issues or stuff slipping. All right, that guy's torqued down. We have our gas system on, we have our muzzle device on, we have our handguard on. Really, we're pretty much done. Last but not least, let's throw on a quick little Picatinny QD socket slot here in the back. We're gonna stick this guy right here. Make sure he's nice and snug. We're going to use our driver. This is a T25 driver. We're gonna loosen it a couple rotations and then tighten it up. Do the same thing on the front, loosen it a couple rotations and tighten it up. And if you really want to get specific on things, you can tighten these guys up to 35 inch-pounds, and then you're gonna know that everything's torqued down to where it needs to be at. All right, guys, so that is pretty much it. That is a completed upper receiver. Now, I would highly recommend giving it overnight, you know, giving it a day or so for that Loctite to set. Right now, it's still a little wet and tacky and stuff. It needs to set and harden up, and that's just gonna keep things from walking out when they're not supposed to. But other than that, this guy's ready to go. A couple little things that we did not mention before. On our medium to longer handguard links, you'll notice that we have a covered window version as well as the one that we just installed. This is fully skeletonized. There are no covered windows on these. This is on our medium to longer handguards. On the shorter ones, they're all skeletonized, okay? Now, what's the purpose of these things? It can protect you from getting carbon blow-by burn kind of things from your gas block, depending on where your gas block's located. It can also provide you a place to put your thumb. It can provide, you know, something to put your thumb on versus putting it on the barrel. Depending on how you hold the gun, it's all a lot of it's cosmetics. If you want windowed or skeletonized, you have that option in the medium to longer length handguards. And the shorter ones, again, they're all skeletonized. I think that is pretty much it. If you have any questions about anything, if we missed something, if you still have a question about something, reach out to us at sales@breekarms.com. And if you want to check any of this stuff out, buy the completed uppers, you know, buy the individual parts, any of the stuff that you saw here, just go over there to breekarms.com and check us out, all right? Y'all be good to be safe. Appreciate y'all stopping by. Hopefully we'll catch y'all later.